Wes, on today's show, we interview the best-selling author Jeremie Kubicek, who's had an interesting life. He's lived intentionally from Oklahoma to Russia to London and back. How would you describe today's interview?
Just a lot of interesting ideas about how you can improve your life.
If you want to learn how to live more intentionally, grab a pen and a pad because it is time to take some notes.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we
Yes, and yes. Thrive Nation, on today's show, we have an incredible guest who I believe has the ability to teach you and I how to become more intentional about the way we live. Jeremie, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. So good to be with you guys. Fun to be with you. What I've heard is an amazing, you're an amazing person. That's what I've heard from a number of people.
Well, they just don't know the truth here. Wes is my attorney, so Wes knows more about the Man Bear Pig that is the Clay Clark experience. So, Wes, you can correct him later if you need to.
No, those are all confidential issues.
Okay. Now, so Jeremie, the first question I'd like to get into, I have a 2-part question before we kind of get into the real good stuff. But we'll start with a tough question right away. What is the real pronunciation of your name, and how did you get into the field that you're into today?
The real pronunciation is Kubicek, Jeremie Kubicek. So I used to write it in elementary school, QB and check mark, and that's how I would sign my papers as I was a clever young lad. And how I got into my work was I started companies. I moved to Russia when I was in my 20s, starting businesses there, and came back, worked for some great people, started some other companies, and eventually started working in private equity and realized that it was killing cultures. And I was like, man, I think you can turn people into an asset, not a liability. Surely there's a better way to grow companies. And so that's how it started. So then we ended up buying John Maxwell's assets and built up the Catalyst conferences and started the LeaderCast and all these different events that kind of helped me see the world and figure out what the issues to leadership and living were, and started working from there.
There's so much ground you just covered there, so I'm sorry to go back and rehash. But I want to. You started this company. I believe the company was called Giant in 2002. Is that the company that you started when you went to Russia? Is that correct?
No, it's a different company. But in 2002, that was my. I had a near-death experience that changed our trajectory of life and decided to do something completely different, and that was Giant in 2002.
So what made you go to Russia? I mean, I know a lot of kids. I mean, Wes, I'm sure you've dreamt of, hey, let's go to Russia. I mean, why don't you and I, after this interview, let's go to Russia? I'm sure you've had that thought.
Quick flight over to Belarus.
What made you want to go to Russia, man?
I had a professor in college, John Cragen, and I went to OBU, and he basically said, you're an entrepreneur. Why don't you use business as a platform for influence? And so the Soviet Union fell apart. And so as you do, there's an opportunity. We were pioneers. We moved in and started creating businesses, economic school, an accounting training company, and a marketing consulting business. And I had some partners, and we took off and established it. It was so much fun.
How did you gain any traction over there? Did you show people like pictures of like the Rocky IV movie cover, and you'd cross out Sylvester Stallone and put like a down arrow to bridge the language gap? Or how did you convince people to do business with you?
Well, so a couple of things. One, we were there during American interest was up because they were told Americans were evil. And then they got to know us, and they liked us, and they loved American culture. So there was an openness then that's probably different now. But also, there's a spirit, like I grew up in Oklahoma, and there's this pioneering spirit in Oklahoma that doesn't exist in a lot of other places. So this whole idea of like, well, who says we can't? I know I'm 21 years old, but really, who says that we can't? And so we kind of went with that. And once you act like you belong, and then you start working with one client, then another, and then another, and another, then it kind of takes off from there.
Now, I understand that you employ roughly 140 people now. Is that correct? Am I right there?
Yeah, we've got colleagues around in about 20 countries, and but we basically have created a leadership business and a platform business that's more of a technology company that people leverage.
What kind of assets did you buy
around the world?
What kind of assets did you buy from John Maxwell? Did you buy like the 22nd law of leadership, or what'd you get?
In 2007, we bought Enjoy and Maximum Impact. So we bought his leadership training companies and his event companies, and then we just giantized them, and we took them from where they were to, we got the LeaderCast, about 180,000 people in a one-day event.
Wow.
And it was good. It was good. It just, what we found is that most adults are cynical know-it-alls who don't read much anymore. And so we just started realizing how adults learn in this digital age.
Right.
So we've been crafting and building completely different ways for professional development, living, a leadership, and that's what we're playing with.
I'm curious. I hear Maxwell and Catalyst Conference. So sounds like you come from a faith background. Your experience in Russia and then just with entrepreneurship in general. How does that play into your faith background? Play into those areas?
Yeah. So I basically, how do you use your day job for a platform for influence? A lot of people will just compartmentalize. I do my life stuff. I make money during the week, and then I do church on the weekend. And I just never bought into that. And so I started just practicing. How do you actually use your platform for influence? And so, we do leader development with people, and we help them understand who they are, and we help them understand what holes they have in their life and what to do about that. And so from a faith journey, I'm a follower of Jesus, but I leverage that, use that to serve people. And so it's just been a fun ride. We've been practicing how to do it and how to figure it out. And I think we finally cracked some codes to make that happen. And so people can live out their faith, not proselytizing, but can actually just go, hey, this is what I'm about. So for instance, we have a definition of love that we use. And the definition came from a friend, Kevin Weaver, but it's to fight for the highest possible good of those you lead. So what would it look like if you got your life centered around and intentional, where you fought for the highest possible good? And you didn't stop until they became that reality. So if you fought for them, then you have to know how to support them, and you have to know how to challenge them. And so these are some of the principles and things that we teach.
Now, you decided to move back to Oklahoma City. Were you tired of the constant Ivan Drago references? Did you want to get away from nonstop hockey? Did you miss the barbecue? What made you come back to Oklahoma City?
Yeah, so I was in Russia for a couple of years, and then we moved back to the city, and then we moved to Atlanta, and then we moved to London for a few years. And then my kids were doing high school, and they said, hey, we want to do high school in America. So I gave them 5 cities to choose from. And we kind of have this approach. I'll explain it here in a minute with our family, but the 5 cities were Denver, D.C., Nashville, Atlanta, or Oklahoma City. Okay. And 3 out of 4, with my wife included, chose Oklahoma City. And, friendships, relationships, our family farm, all those things played into it. And so with technology these days and Delta Airlines, I can pretty much do anything. Right now, I'm in a home of one of our strategic partners, built in the 1790s just outside of Allentown, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And, so I travel quite a bit, and then we have our offices and our team. And so we just learned how to use Zoom and technology to the nth degree.
Now, I understand that you've written multiple books. I believe 5. What first inspired you to write your book, 5 Gears, How to Be Present and Productive When There Is Never Enough Time?
So what happened was I was finding myself years before giving my kids a stiff arm when I get home at night. And what I meant is I would still be on the phone walking outside after getting out of my car, and my kids would be playing basketball, and I'd pat them on the head. And
Yeah.
I'd have the phone still glued to my ear, and I'm finishing up a phone call. And I just noticed the distance, and the reality was I was overproductive and underpresent. And the overproductivity, being underpresent with my family, was actually causing me to lose influence with my family. And I was, tired of it. So I made some changes, and then I get to London, and my business partner, I started noticing things in Steve, and both of our lives were a little different in how so I needed a metaphor, and I just chose an English stick shift, so manual stick shift, and to talk about the idea that we need to be in every gear every day, just like a car needs to be in different gears at different times. And so it's a sign language that you teach. And do you mean to share it real fast?
Yeah, no, we want to hear it. This is hot.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so the sign language goes like this. Fifth gear is when you're in focus mode. So it's when you're in the zone. You're like, someone has to call your name 3 times to get your attention because you're so focused. That's fifth gear.
Fifth gear.
Fourth gear is multitask, task mode, phone calls, to-do lists. It's what most of our days are probably like. Third gear is social. So it's chit-chat, small talk. How was the weekend? How was the lake? How's it going? How are your kids? Second gear is connect mode, where you're going deeper, date night, conversation, coffee with a dear friend. And first gear is recharge, personal recharge.
Now,
Go ahead.
I want to ask you, so fifth gear is focus mode. What was fourth gear? I'm taking notes here. Fourth gear.
Multitask. Task mode.
Multitask. Got it. Multitask. Taking notes here. Okay, I'm using an Etch-a-Sketch, so it takes me a little bit longer. But third gear.
Third gear is social mode.
Social mode. And then the second gear is connect mode. And the first gear is recharge mode. Now, here I want you to analyze me right now. You help me with this.
Yep.
I only like fifth gear. No. The other gears, I've learned to go into the other gears. So, like, my first gear is kind of like polar bear mode, where my wife's like, why don't we take a nap on Sunday? Just relax, recharge. I'm like, no, I don't want a nap. But then when I do, I usually wake up feeling good. But I don't want to recharge. And then the connect mode, I mean, I guess, I don't know. Social mode, I don't do that. Multitask mode, I like to just focus. Can you help us? Maybe there's somebody out there who can relate to this, where you're just in go mode all the time, or help us.
So what the reality is, most guys tend to be in fourth and fifth gear all day long. They wake up in fourth gear. They check their email. Woo! They then get into fifth gear. They shift to fourth gear, then fifth gear, fourth gear, fifth gear. Then they go to bed in fourth and fifth gear, and they fake third gear, and they put up with second gear, and they're horrible at it.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't recharge, and they have a heart attack at the age of 55.
Oh, come
60.
on.
So,
No, you're saying the truth. I don't want the truth. Boom. Too much truth. Okay, continue. I'm sorry. We just wanted to boo the truth for a minute.
So what happens then is you go, okay, so to be intentional, you need to be in every gear. So if you're in fourth and fifth gear only, it's impossible to drive a car in fourth gear out of your driveway. There needs to be a natural time. We need every gear every day. So what would first gear look like? So what we do is we have people rank their gear order and go, for me, my hardest gear is first gear. I give myself away to everybody else. I don't really recharge. I don't know how to do that well. So I struggle there, where my wife is an introvert. She actually really knows how to recharge. So you'll find extroverts have a tendency to be in second, third, fourth, or really fourth and third. Introverts are more fifth gear and first gear, and they can get into second gear. So point
true.
Is know yourself to lead yourself. Know what your worst gear is, and start working on that, and you'll see a ton of change, and your influence will grow.
Now,
so go ahead.
I was going to just ask, do you get pushback from people saying, I don't have time for first gear and second gear. I can't get everything done that I need for fourth and fifth gear.
Can't get it done.
Well, how do I make time for the want to gears?
So that's what I used to say, and I realized that I was losing influence. So if you want to be influential, then you'll work on the gears. If you want to just want to get things done and move things around and think that you're being productive, then you'll stay in one gear. Because if I'm overproductive in one, I'm undermining myself in others, because everything is built on relational trust. People getting things done, actually relational trust. If I'm working with you and I don't like you, I'll do what you asked me to do out of compliance, but not out of engagement. And there's a big difference between compliance and engagement. Does that make sense?
It does. So you're saying if you're not paying attention to all the gears, you're cheating yourself.
That's right. That's right. So that is the real importance of the gears, is to really understand and know yourself so you can lead yourself. And so if you know and understand that where your tendencies are, so for me, for instance, I would come home and I was so productive, I was undermining my kids and my relationship long-term with my wife. So what's that going to do when my kids are gone? And I don't have a relationship because I was overproductive at work and never connecting with my family.
You'll come on the Thrive Time show.
What I did is
we'll get you on the show for a little therapy
Say
session.
it again.
We'll get you on the Thrive Time show for a little therapy session when you're living on the couch. That's what we'll do. I vouched here. If you can't get in out of those out of fifth gear and you find yourself alone, you just call into the show. Z, we'll do like a 12-hour podcast with Z and Wes and I. But it sounds like he's pretty balanced. That probably won't happen. But back to you, sir. Sorry, I just wanted to offer that as a backup plan.
No. So what I did is I started figuring out trigger points for myself.
Yeah.
And a trigger point actually, it was a QT, a quick trip in Atlanta. And as soon as I got there, I used that as my go-to. Like, that was my marker to turn off. So I got out of fourth and fifth gear, and I started shifting into second and third gear. And my wife and I agreed between 6 and 8 o'clock, we're going to be intentional with our family, which meant that we're all going to do second and third gear. And then you use the gears as sign language. So when the kids are doing whatever, you just hold up and go, hey, guys, whistle, third gear, hold up 3 fingers. Everyone now knows the common language, so I'm not nagging them, get off your phone, get off your phone, get off your phone. Instead, I just hold up 3, and I'm calling a play. Well, the trigger point allowed me to shift gears, so I proactively started thinking intentionally about my kids, about my wife. What are we going to do tonight? What if we did a food fight night? That'd be fun. And I started creating these randomly fun things. And it took my kids about 3 weeks to get used to me, and about 7-8 weeks for my wife to believe it was true, that I was actually consistently leading as a dad and as a husband and as a father.
Josh, what question do you have for Mr. Jeremie?
Hey, Jeremie. So my question would be, I hear you saying you're defining those things for your life personally in those gears. And I was also reading on a Faith-Driven Entrepreneur how you're talking about your principles, which is super important to me. And I think there's a lot of small business owners out there trying to define those things of how much is enough. And I love the principle of stewardship versus ownership. Could you speak about that, please, sir?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly from the stewardship versus ownership. I mean, I won't address that directly.
Sure.
But what I want to speak to is the idea of being intentional is it's being a steward of your life, and it's actually having a vision. And what I find with most small business owners is that they had a vision in the beginning, and then the fourth gear tasks and all of clients and work and employees and all that kind of crowds in. And so there's the famous verse that Jesus talks about, the cares of the world, delight in riches, desire for other things, enter in, choke the truth, and prove a person unfruitful. So there's a lot of unfruitful living and unfruitful people, primarily because they've taken their eye off the ball, they forgot their vision, they forgot their purpose. So therefore, when you do that, it's hard to steward anything, because all you're doing is you're stewarding the chaos of everyday fourth gear living. Awesome. And that's what intentionality really does. It kind of refocuses you on your purpose.
One of the things I saw you talk about in one of your YouTube presentations is you were talking about accidentally living. And you said, and I'm quoting, and I might misquote this here, so Wes, our attorney at law, he can hold me accountable here to not making things up. Wes, I believe he said this in the YouTube video, in the transcript. It says, be proactive, not reactive. Don't let someone else define your day in an email or phone call. Wes, does it seem probable he said that?
Seems like good advice.
Okay, so Jeremie, did you say that? And what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So most people allow other people to hijack them, especially in the mornings.
Oh,
So
yeah.
somebody wrote an email last night, and you woke up and you're not fully ready, and all of a sudden you open it up and you start reading it, and you react to their comment and like, oh yeah, that's not what I meant. How would you? And then you get into it. So it's almost like you allowed somebody to hijack your mornings versus coming out and going, no, remind yourself who you are today. So I have this little thing I do in the mornings. It's not Stuart Smalley. You remember Stuart Smalley? Like, I
I'm
feel
good enough.
healthy, happy,
Smart,
and doggone
smart
it, people like me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not to that degree, but I do remind myself who I am. I did it this morning. I woke up in Pennsylvania, and I was like, you know what, Jeremie, you're a liberator. You fight for the highest possible good. And then I thought about the people that I was going to speak to today. I prayed over that time for them. I got my mind ready. Then when I was ready, not before then I looked at email. Then I looked at the other things because I needed to be in the right frame of mind. I needed to be like, I'm a fighter. I'm a freedom fighter. Let's wake up. Let's do our deal. Then I'll let other people's comment. I've just watched over and over, people have become fruitless because they allow other people to really twist and turn them all day long based on emails or text or whatever taken out of context. And it just gets kind of wearing watching it after a while.
Wes, I know you have a hot question here for Jeremie, but before we cue that up, I have audio at Winters and King. It's a law firm, a great law firm. WintersKing.com is where Wes's team. You're located at the Cityplex Tower, the
59th floor, right across from
floor.
ORU.
Yeah, the whole floor up there at the Cityplex Towers, Winters King. And you guys, what are some of the bigger names you guys have represented over the years there, Wes?
Well, we've been really blessed. We've worked with, for a long time, Bishop Jakes in the Potter's House and Joyce Meyer Ministries. We've gotten to work with Craig Rochelle at Life Church and, a lot of for-profit business as well. But our niche is a lot of ministries and churches, and been able to work with some really cool people.
Well, Wes has this thing where he has a rule up there that client confidentiality is very strict. There's no cameras everywhere. You're not recording. You know, when you're up there, Winters and King, you feel safe. You feel like you can talk and you're not being recorded, and it's a client privilege is very important.
Yes.
So last night, without your permission, I went up there.
Oh, yeah.
I went up there, and I was sneaking around on the 50, what floor? 58?
59.
59th floor. I go up there. Elevator doors open. Shoo. I'm up there, and I notice, I'm like, what is this? I'm by myself. So I slept there last night. So when you came in this morning, I was under your desk.
I thought I smelled something.
When you were doing your daily affirmations, I just took my little recorder out, little phone, a little app there, and I recorded it, and I would like to play this with the listeners. You can tell the listeners whether this is or is not you, and then you can get back to your question, okay? So I'm just going to cue it up.
All right.
Nothing weird, just me violating your privacy in your law office, and I'm just going to cue it up. You tell me whether this is or is not you before you can ask Jeremie a serious question. So here we go.
A lot of pressure. You got to rise above it. You got to harness in the good energy, block out the bad. Harness, energy, block, bad. Feel the flow happy. Feel it. It's circular. It's like a carousel. You pay the quarter, you get on the horse. It goes up and down and around. Circular, circle, with the music, the flow. All good things.
Wes, was that you?
It sounded like my internal voice there a little bit.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I do have to remind myself to go.
Turns
to
out it
go to
wasn't
my happy
you.
Place periodically.
Turns out it wasn't you. I'm sorry, I grabbed the wrong sound clip there. So back to you there, Wes.
Well, I just kind of was curious as far as struggles. I mean, entrepreneurs always have ups and downs and ups and downs. And are there any like down times that stick out to you, and as you've started and grown these separate businesses, where you're like, we had to get through that rust? Like a lot of entrepreneurs think it's going to be all sunshine all day, and they're just going to conquer the world.
Lovely day.
I'm assuming you've had some struggles.
Oh, Wes, every day. I mean, like, that's the thing. I think here's what we, like the whole idea of weakness, we just decided years ago not to run from it and hide it, but to run towards it. And to go, we built our business around weakness we created these visual tools, and we have this platform called Giant TV, where we just share all of our episodes of here's how we screwed up. Here's what's going on. Here's how I feel when this happens. Here's how extreme stress takes me out. So the reality, though, to do something about it, we have this process called Know Yourself, Lead Yourself. And it's an infinity loop, and it has a process of tendencies lead to patterns, which leads to actions, which will have consequences that shape reality. If you don't like your reality, you work backwards and go, okay, well, what happened? Here are the consequences from my action or reaction that came from this pattern, that comes from this tendency. Well, the tendencies are never going to change.
Oh.
Like, for instance, I'm always going to be defensive. That's just who I am. I'm a defensive person, and I have it in me. So I have to really fight that. Well, I know my patterns. When I get tired and I'm defensive, completely different than when I'm not tired. And so I know myself. When I know myself, it happened today. I was frustrated with my business partner on Slack with a comment that he made. I was noticing myself get defensive. My historical tendency would be, my action would be, oh, yeah, well, how about this? And I'm like, no, don't lean on your own understanding. No, I think you're wrong, Jeremy. Don't go there. And I let it pass. And guess what? I got an email back. Hey, sorry about that. It was my bad, actually. And it worked itself out. And if I would have caused a grenade launch and thrown a grenade in the middle of that, it would have caused drama that was unnecessary. So most of the issues that happen are coming from our disappointment from expectations that we had that just didn't get realized. And therefore, our tendency tied to those expectations. So, all day long, if you want to go into weaknesses or issues, then we could have an entire show just on that alone.
And I think that's great advice, because I preach this to a lot of my employees, which is, identify your weaknesses. If you're not detail-oriented, you have to be very intentional to do to-do lists and things like that, or to read it slower, do it a second time. If you're like Clay and I, and you're not the greatest at emotional bonding, you have to be more intentional about talking to your employees, asking them how their day was, how are the kids doing. I think identifying your tendencies can go a long way in improving skills.
Well, what would be so helpful, Wes, if you and Clay right now, if you wouldn't mind, could you guys just hold each other? Just hug and hold each other for like 7 seconds.
Wes.
Jeremy, as a show advisor, I can tell you they're not doing it, sir. They're not hearing.
I think we just move further apart from each other.
Stop touching me.
I thought I'd try.
Now, Wes, I have an audio clip of you preaching to your team this morning.
Okay.
And again, I'm sorry. Once you get the sound, it's really hard to get up to the tower. I had to climb up the elevator shaft. The whole thing was tough. But once I got up there, I'd like to explain to the listeners, if you could explain to the listeners, what were you talking about preceding this sound clip? Because you had to be pretty fired up here.
Thunder, you're getting ready to flow. I feel the glory of God.
I just want to know, why did it end with an explosion too? What was happening?
That was just me exciting to leave the office to come do the Thrive Time show. That's what that was.
Okay. Okay. Now I have two final questions for Mr. Jeremy. Before Jeremy, I'll let you get back to being awesome. You are taking time out of your schedule here to maybe hop into fifth gear with us here, and I appreciate that very much. We've had so many super successful people. We've had, John Maxwell, you mentioned him. We've had Wolfgang Puck, really neat people. Justin Wren, your friend on the show. And I feel like every super successful person we've had has an idiosyncrasy, something weird they do that allows them to be successful. I've heard you talk in some of your presentations about being very intentional with how you're raising your kids. Maybe that's an idiosyncrasy. Or what is an idiosyncrasy? Something that you do that's different than most people that you think has allowed you to have a certain level of success?
You mean not random, like I play harmonica and play the blues? Not like that, right?
No,
you
mean anything.
So I do think, like, if you think of any secret sauce, I think our organization has been so intentional in being intentional. So with my kids, I do when they are 16 to 18 years old, I do an intentional apprenticeship program for 2 years with them. And it's not as intense as it sounds, but it's informal and formal. And they have books they have to read, people they have to be with. So like my son right now just finished climbing Mount Elbert in Colorado. and I have a daughter who's just finishing. She's at Stonehenge today, and she's in London this summer. And so they all had different things they had to do. They had to have a business by the time they were 15 years old. They had to do certain things. So that probably would make us. My wife and I built a modern farmhouse community because we wanted to be more intentional in a community. So it's 20 houses in the Lake Arcadia area in Oklahoma City. It's called the Prairie at Post. So it's like Chip and Jonah Gaines, but a neighborhood of 20 farmhouses. So we try things that most people wouldn't, with the whole "who says you can't" mentality.
I love it. Real quick, I love everything that you're doing. I love it. I just love the whole thing. I can't handle it. It's too good. My wife and I homeschool our kids, but I love this. You got the apprenticeship for the kids. You've created your own weird community. It's unbelievable. Do you make your own soap?
I don't have soap. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, because to me that would complete it, make it perfect. If you made your own soap and had a herd of silky chickens.
And it's not a cult.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I need to clarify that.
God, not a cult. I thought you were a cult guy. I wanted to be okay. I can't get bored behind this. No, I love this. So this is great.
It's just like "who says you can't," right? And so that's the idea. Well, if you're walking free and you're confronting your own weakness as like, hey. This is who I am, and yet that's where faith comes in to go. If you know, in our case, like I'm a son of the Most High God, then represent Him and act like it, and don't play to domination. Don't play to the enemy who wants to steal, kill, and destroy you. So I'm like, play the other end. The other end is heal, call out, and raise up. So if you can heal people, if you can cast things out of them, if you can raise up things inside people, then people gravitate to that, and it's just a much better way to live.
Wes, Josh, I'm going to give you guys the final word here. We'll start with you, Josh. Any final question for this man who says you can't and is doing it? This guy's been living intentionally from Oklahoma to Russia to London to Okmulgee, probably. I mean, unbelievable. Josh, what questions do you have?
Hey, so my final question would be for you, since you started so young, and there's so many young entrepreneurs out there and small business owners, if you had to identify, and I know Wes mentioned it earlier and you were talking about it earlier, but if you had to identify one mistake, if you could just tell everybody out there listening right now and just one-on-one with everybody, what would that one drastic mistake and drastic difference be that could just set somebody's life on a different trajectory?
I think it was probably in mindset is not knowing myself as well. Like, I know my wiring. I know how God wired me. I know how we use the 5 voices for that. I know how, what my tendencies are. If I'd known that way earlier, I could have kept myself from a lot of drama and relational drama, primarily, that I had to learn in my 40s, and I wish I had learned earlier.
For the listeners out there that can't relate to that, I want to make sure you're getting this. If I'm hearing you right, it's like when you don't know who you are necessarily, or you choose not to live who you are, you might have hanger-oners or be surrounded by people that don't share your values and your goals, or people that you may say the things you wish you wouldn't have. You may, you may try to be someone that you're not because you see someone else as being successful. So if you know how you're wired, then you can start finding, I always tell people in your 20s, it's not what you do in your 20s, it's who you work for that's most important. And on top of that, if you understand who you are in your 20s and work for the right people, you set yourself up for much more success later in life, because the most influential years are 55 to 70. So if you can play towards those in that marathon, then that's the game. Oh, I want to rotisserie marinate on that. And Wes, we want to respect his time. Final question you have.
Yeah, I have a very important business question. What does your Gear 1 look like, Jeremy? I'm curious. I mean, what are you, a golfer? You're at the lake? You're just vegging out on the couch? What's your Gear 1?
That's my problem. It's my worst gear. And my problem is my Gear 1 is to travel and hang with people. Today I'm with a sports psychologist who works with the Philadelphia Flyers and is a dear friend. And so I'm here, I'm working with CEOs and speaking, and I'm hanging with my buddy. So I like to meet people while I like to travel with my wife and go places. So that's my Gear 1, really. but that's hard to do on an everyday basis. So our newest book is called The 100X Leader, and we talk about these kinds of things. We talk about how to get 100% healthy, and this is my weakness and my opportunity to grow.
Well, I'm going to buy that book right now on Amazon. Andrew, we got to buy that book. You're my accountability partner. We're going to Amazon Prime right now.
100X Leader.
100X Leader. I'm buying that book right now, and I know the listeners out there want to know why is this a must-read for everybody out there?
People have been telling us. It just got voted the best business book of 2019 by SoundView today.
Okay.
The reason it's a field guide, it uses the Sherpa metaphor on Mount Everest, and it gives a way better, deeper explanation of servant leadership, because servant leadership doesn't scale. The idea is you're a Sherpa. You fight for the highest possible good of those that you're helping climb, and your job is to support them and then to challenge them. And so in it, we kind of just talked about the concepts, which is really who Jesus was. He's a lamb and a lion. And so the idea of support and challenge. So we think it's a field guide for anyone who's leading people. And we just think it's that important.
You said that servant leadership, it's a different perspective on servant leadership. Where do people get servant leadership wrong by default?
Servant leadership oftentimes leads to enabling and protecting because you want to be nice.
Oh.
So therefore, then when you share expectations that don't feel that way, then people go, "Oh, I thought you were a servant leader. I thought this was all a blah, blah, blah."
Right.
And you're like, yeah, Jesus turned over tables.
Yeah.
And he was a lion most of the time. So in servant leadership, there's no real room for challenge. So we just simply put in the best leaders in the world, or what we call liberators, high support and high challenge. When you do that well in your family, with your wife, spouse, with your team, then you become somebody people want to follow, not have to follow.
Man, I appreciate you. You have just dropped infinite knowledge bombs today. I'm going to have to just go home and just marinate on this. Oh, Wes, this was a great interview.
It was a great interview.
Jeremie, thank you so much. And if you're a listener out there, I'm not going to go as far as to say that you're a bad person if you don't purchase the 100X Leader. I wouldn't say that, because that would be like a negative reinforcement, kind of. That'd be negative. I'm saying that some would say, you are really hurting yourself if you don't pick up this book. I just bought a copy right now for $16.51. And everybody out there, if you're being honest, and leadership is truly where if you're stuck because you're not able to lead a team of people, a $16 investment that could make you thousands or millions, it's a no-brainer. Go pick up the book today, 100X Leader, How to Become Someone Worth Following. And if you don't, I want you to feel bad all day. Just feel bad. Just get in your car and go buy the random stuff at Quick Trip that you don't need, the taquitos and the burritos, and watch some random show on Showtime and just drift around and go, I could have been learning something. That's how you should feel if you don't buy that book. Jeremie, I appreciate you so much, my friend.
Yeah, and when I say this, if people always ask, like, okay, how do we find out about you? It's giantworldwide.com. That's it. So if they want more information, and you can get it there.
Giant Worldwide.
Thanks so much. You guys are hilarious. Thank you for the time.
We're getting better. It's Wes has been making sure I don't have too much Red Bull before each and every interview. That's one thing he's been working with me on. And thank you, Wes.
We'll get there eventually.
Going down to gear one. Okay. Take care, Jeremie.
Thanks, Jeremie.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Wes, we like to end each and every show with a boom, but before we do that, wasn't this guy one of the best interviews we've had in a while? This guy was incredible.
Just like a fountain of knowledge. I just kept being amazed with the little nuggets he was dropping.
It was kind of like we went in, and I go, I'm expecting there to be like a buffet with maybe like chicken. And then we went around the corner, and there's like beef, and there's
seafood.
It was unbelievable. That's Jeremie Kubicek. No relationship, no connection to Bill Belichick, I believe. It's Jeremie Kubicek. Not related to Bill Belichick, but the name, it's kind of rhymes.
I think a lot of things remind you of Bill Belichick.
Speaking of Bill Belichick, let's end the show with a boom, because I think that's what Bill Belichick would do. And I have no proof to support that he wouldn't end the show with a boom if he was hosting the show, other than every interview he's ever done where he usually sounds like he doesn't want to be on the interview. But I tell you what, the Patriots are looking good this season. Have you watched the preseason?
I have. They look like the Patriots.
As my attorney, do you know how I can hack into cable to watch the preseason games? Because right now I'm paying for the premium, but I can't watch it because it says I'm my IP address is not in New England. And you guess you can only watch the preseason game if you're in New England.
Yeah.
So as my attorney, do you have an illegal way that I could log on to the internet
I do.
and change
I
my
do.
IP address?
I'll hit you up after the show. We'll talk about a VPN for you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Here we go. Without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom. Stop what you're doing and think about this for a second. What would happen if your company was suddenly able to generate exponentially more quality sales leads? That would be incredible. What would happen if your company came up at the top or near the top of the Google search engine results? Well, I would just feel overwhelmed with all that business. How many thousands of dollars in lost sales or millions of dollars in lost sales are you missing out on simply because your potential customers can't find you when they go online to search for the products and services that you offer? I refuse to think that thought because I don't want any more business. Unless you are a dirty communist that hates money, my new book, Search Engine Domination, will help you grow your business. In my new book, Search Engine Domination, we will teach you the specific steps that you need to take to dominate the search engine results. What do you mean by dominate? You see, in my new book, Search Engine Domination, we will teach you the specific steps that you need to take to dominate search engine results. Download your free ebook copy today at thebestseobook.com. I repeat, that's thebestseobook.com.
My name is Amy Baltimore, and I am a CPA in Covington, Tennessee. I've been working with the Thrive team now for about a year. One of the first things that they did was to update my website and my search engine optimization. I prior had a website, but I was not being found on Google, and all of my new business was coming through referrals from friends, family, etc. And right away, I started to see results. People were calling and coming in saying that they found me on Google. They just Googled CPA near me, and there I was at the top of the page. And so it's been a great help to my business.
Again, you can download your free ebook copy today at thebestseobook.com.
Hey, this is Dustin Huff. I'm with Keystone Harbor Marina. We joined Thrive back in January and have been working with these guys for about 7 months. During that time period, we have moved up our Google rank through reviews and SEO processes that we've compiled through these guys. Our leads have gone from about 4 a week to now 165 a week. So the process works. I will tell you from experience, once you begin, you have to stay with it. As long as you continually do this week in and week out, month in and month out, you'll continually grow.
The system works, but nothing works unless you do. You've got to take some action. Download the ebook for free today at thebestseobook.com.
Hello, my name is Daniel with Daniel's Heating and Air here in Amarillo, Texas. The way Google has affected my business, we have got a lot of calls from Google. Right now it's July, and we've had the best month ever. And it took us about 8 to 10 months to get on top of Google, and I'm glad we did.
Remember, nothing works unless you do. You have to go to thebestseobook.com today. Download the ebook for free. Just download that ebook for free, and you'll be off to the races.
Hi, my name is Christina Nemus. I'm the owner and operator of Angel's Touch Auto Body and Detailing in Bourne, Massachusetts. We have been working with Thrive and their coaching for, say, 8 to 9 months, and it took us about 6 months, 5 to 6 months to get on the top of Google, and with their help with the website and marketing, and the SEO and retargeting ads with Google, and it has been phenomenal. We just have light and day business coming in, phone calls coming in, walk-ins, referrals. It's just through the roof, and we couldn't be happier. At the moment, we are up 50% this year from the previous year, and not only is that part of our own hard work and diligence, but also with the help of Thrive and what they've done for us and getting us on the top of Google and, you know, all their knowledge and coaching. And yeah, so super grateful, super pumped to see what the future holds for all of us. Thank you.
This is your year to thrive. Success you will find. Today is your day, and now is your time.
Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Proverbs 10:4. I'm here to tell you, you can do it if you can just motivate yourself. 12 the masses had to cut off a few, so on the daily you and I could rendezvous. A misshapen tree that I had to prune. I had to make cuts to be here daily at noon. So like a tidal wave of knowledge monsoon, I could rain on the parades of those of doubt and you. Are you the next Rockefeller or the next guru? Or the next Dr. King who's changing the rules? Walls are in your way, will you run right through? Like a running back, forth the one, it's up to you. I remember my days back in the dorm room, tuned to the gloom like the temple of doom. Overwhelmed with the doubts that try to consume my hope for the future that I could pursue. But from the mountaintop now I can conclude that you have what it takes if you want the view to.
This is your year to thrive. Success you will find. Today is your day, and now is your time. It's your year to thrive. Success you will find. Today is your day, and now is your time.
This moment is profound cause you're above the ground. Your road might have been rough, but what you got now is now. We're here to pick you up and to even show you how, but you gotta be resourceful with that old plow. Started from the bottom, but I worked my way up, cause by 4 a.m. I've always been prayed up. Rise and grind, now's your time, don't dare let up. You gotta get it, don't quit it till your seeds grow up.
This is your year to thrive.
Come on.
Success you will find.
Yes.
Today is your day,
Somebody say,
and now is your time.
it's your time.
It's your year to thrive.
Come on.
Success you will find. Today is your day, and now is your time.
It's your time. We all have a wish and we all want to win, but we cannot begin without self-discipline. If you fall on your face, get yourself up again. Attach yourself to goals, not fail with the friends. When the storms get rough and they scatter and leave, you only be there with yourself and what you believe. We believe in you, but not as much as God does. If you're going through hell, He's got nothing but love. Apply what you learn, increase what you earn, and in due time you have money to burn.
Apply what you've learned, increase what you earn, and in due time you got money to burn.
Sing it.
Apply what you've learned, increase what you earn, in due time you got money to burn.
Sing it.
Apply what you've learned,
Sing it.
increase what you earn.
Yes.
In due time you got money to
With this biblical miracle, I look to shout down the doubters. Kill the weeds that be killing your dream flowers. Empower you to devour all the obstacles that make your sweet dreams sour. As for me, I used to stutter, but now I'm on the microphone smooth like butter. If I can do it, I know you can too, but you must stick to it like postage do. And while Merton's on the chorus, singing what he sings, I encourage you to dream big dreams.
Today is your day.
Today's your day.
And now is your time.
It's your time.
This is your year to thrive.
Sing it.
Success you will find. Today is your day.
It's your day.
And now is your time.
It's your time.
Today is your day.
Come on.
And now is your time.
Sing it, Martin.
Today is your day. Now is your time.
I realize I can't sing like that, but I can talk and play the woodblock. Okay. If you guys need me, I'll just be over here.